Good evening, Monday Morning Quarterback, episode 33. Here tonight, testing my true love for our Monday Morning Quarterback audience. For those of you who know me, the only thing that compares to my love of racing, outside of my family of course, is my love for the New Orleans Saints, and they're on TV right now. And Drew Brees is fixing to break that record any moment, but I'm here with you guys, and it's okay, because I like what we got going on, and we want to keep educating you guys. So tonight we're going to go into torsion bar dynoing. I got my ace cameraman, Sambo, back, and we're going to go into torsion bar dynoing. There's been a few articles floating around the internet as far as when a bar goes bad, if a bar goes bad, if you can flip it in the car and get the same result. I'm not a metallurgist, but we've had this machine for 9 years. We've dynoed over 5,000 bars on it, and I feel pretty confident in what we've learned. And I'm going to just show you, plain and simple, what the dyno tells us, and then how we correlate that feedback to what drivers have said when they feel a bar is going bad, etc. Last week I didn't go to any races. I was on my annual trip to the Hilly 100. I go down there with a few buddies, and we do a bike ride. So I took last weekend off. Was going to smoke at Kokomo last night, and that rained out. So this week we're off to Sweet Springs, Missouri for the Show Me Showdown, 7,500 to win micro race. So looking forward to seeing a bunch of micro customers there. We'll be rolling into town sometime Thursday afternoon. So hope you guys are having a good start to your week, and we're going to dive into this. This is a Maxwell torsion bar dyno, and I've already warmed this bar up. So typically when we put a bar in, we'll run it twice, reset the stop, and then do some data acquisition runs. So I've already done that, and we'll fire right in and do a run. So one of the things I'd read is you can't measure the rebound of a bar. I'll repeat that now that it's quiet. One of the things that I'd read online through the comments is somebody had said, well, you can't measure the rebound of a bar. That's exactly what this machine just did. It wound it up under compression and then released it on rebound with the load cell measuring every step of the way. Okay. So now if Sam jumps over here, so here's our two data runs. We've got a red run and a yellow run, and you can see they overlay over top of each other perfectly, okay? One's 173.3, the other one's 172.9, and like I say, they overlay perfectly. And I'll show you, the software calls it the up and the down, up being compression, down being rebound. So there's your compression and your rebound rates throughout the whole range. We've heard some people say that if the split's more than 10 pounds, the bar's no good. I don't know that to be the exact case. I'll show you how we determine whether a bar is good or bad in a moment. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm simply going to flip this torsion bar around to the way, opposite way of how we just ran it, and show you guys what typically happens here. So you gotta take it off, same as if it was in the race car. So we always dyno numbers to the arm, unless when a customer sends them in, they say they do it the opposite. That's kind of the norm. So all I did was flip that over 180. So this would be like putting a right rear bar in the left rear now. We always preload our stop to about 10 pounds and then zero it out. Zero that. So run 3, the graph is now not in the same spot, and our average for this one is 171.9. So we've lost a pound, but if I can zoom in here, it's not letting me. It's not letting me zoom in, but I'll show you the difference here. So run 1, you can see we're 2, 4, 7, 7, 9, 9, 10 different. And then when we get to run 3, look at right away it's 10 different. 10, 12, 13, 14. See how the bar is much different from compression to rebound. Now this is the same exact bar. All we did was flip it around, and we went from a compression to rebound split kind of in the meat of the range there of 2 to 7 pounds, and now it's double that, okay? We're now working from like 10 to 19 pounds. So the bar's jumping around and it doesn't like that, okay? Again, I'm not a metallurgist, but I know if I flip this bar back around and I run it 3 or 4 times, it'll go back to that small compression to rebound split. But something tells me the metal doesn't like that, right? And the only analogy I can think of is if you had a piece of aluminum and you just bent it several times one direction and flipped it over and bent it the other way, what's going to happen? It's going to crack or break. Now this isn't going to break because it's much more robust, it's thicker than a sheet of aluminum, but I think the same principles apply. So I definitely don't recommend flipping your bar around. I will take the camera from Sam. Thank you, Sambo, for your assistance. And I will show you, I'm going to show you here. So this, John Randall, we're going to show your bars. Here on the left, we got 2 bars I printed, is what we would consider a good bar. So from the compression side to the rebound side, a very nice even split, and it comes to a nice point, and you can see both data runs. It's hard to see, but you can see both the yellow and the red overlay, and it's a nice even split. Now that's what we would consider a good torsion bar. When we dyno new bars, that's what they look like. Now, a bar that's in not such good shape. So here's our 2 runs after the warm-up. They're not overlaying at all. And now, instead of that nice crisp point, see how it's getting boxed off there? We'll see them get to be a total box or round. That area right there, the turnaround point where it winds it from compression to rebound, when we start to see it get squared off like that, instead of a nice crisp point like that, that's, in my opinion, the bars aren't as lively. And when we have very good race car drivers who have a great feel for the car tell us that they're having an issue, something doesn't feel right, and we don't find anything with the shocks, their cars are good, typically we'll see that on the torsion bar. It's starting to get squared off there, and I just don't think it's reacting as quick, okay? So as the bar is getting wound up on the compression, it's losing rate. It's not rebounding as quickly. The overall spring rate of the bar is the same. It's just not rebounding as quickly as it once did. It's not reacting to change as well as it once did when you're putting weight in the car. And it's just time for a new set of bars. So let me scroll up and see if there's any questions I missed here. Once a bar has been in the right side, Can it be in the left side, or will the numbers be off? So that's what we just showed, Harley, is you can flip from left front to right rear, or vice versa, but don't flip from side to side. So as long as the bar is getting twisted in the same orientation, you're going to be okay. But you do not want to twist it the opposite orientation. I don't think you're doing anything good for the material that those bars are made out of. So that kind of puts to bed a few of the things that have been talked about on social media lately about bars not going bad or not being able to flop them from corner to corner. I just showed you what we've learned on the bar dyno and what seems to be very factual information. So don't flip your bars from left to right. Only keep them twisting the same orientation. And there definitely is a life on your bars. As we see, those two sheets I just showed you from Mr. John Randall, those were some bars that he had ran. We ran through a bunch of them for him, and we found a couple that weren't looking as good. And whether those were in a crash or were just worked really hard. I know they weren't old. John keeps really fresh stuff on his cars, but one thing him and I did discuss is blocking the car traveling up and down the road. So I don't think it's really an issue as far as your shocks are concerned, but I think your bars get a really good workout going up and down the road. So good idea to put a 4x4 underneath the frame rails there and keep from the thing bouncing going up and down the road and wearing the bars out. So especially if you're going on long trips. Again, I'm not a big believer in needing to put travel shocks on, but I definitely think you should block the car so you're not wearing the bars out. Any questions from anybody that's tuned in to episode 33 here? We appreciate all you guys tuning in, and we're going to continue to bring you guys through these shows throughout the winter. We're working on some new production stuff where we can show you more detailed things that we pre-record at race shops and some of our vendors that machine parts for us, some chassis builders that we work with, etc. So we're looking forward to doing that for you as I learn some new technologies. Good evening, Cindy from the West Coast. We just shipped you guys some quarter midget shocks back today, and we look forward to seeing you out in Las Vegas. Gosh, it'll be here before we know it. Anybody else that's tuned in have questions on torsion bars or anything else with your race program that we can answer? Will a bar gain or lose spring rate throughout its life? Typically, it doesn't change a whole lot, Jared, but what we do see is they will get slightly stiffer, okay? And we think they just get work hardened a little bit. That rate doesn't change drastically, usually 5% or less, but we will see them get slightly stiffer. Rarely do we see them get softer. So similar question there, Kevin, that just got asked. They don't really lose rate. We'll just see them start to slow down on that turnaround point, not rebound quite as quickly, and that's kind of when they're starting to go bad. So kind of the old school way, some old crew chiefs before we had all this computer technology told me they used to check their stuff, is they just would block the car, and they had the same set of tires in their shop that never left the shop. They'd block the car and put those same tires on, and with the shocks unhooked, they'd measure their corner heights in the same spot of their shop. And once the car started to sag, that's when they would replace the bars. So without dyno technology and stuff then, that's how the old timers used to check, is they would just measure ride heights without the shocks hooked up with the same tires and block the car the same. And when the specific corner started to sag, they would replace that bar. And those guys are smart. The old guys are smarter than us young guys. They did a lot of kick-ass stuff without near the data and technology that we have today. So, Nathan, great question. Can a bar be stiffer or softer even if they're both the 1025? Yes, they can. So a 1025, a little bit of a complicated equation, but a 1025 originally before we went to hollow bars, a solid 1025 bar did in fact measure 1 inch 25 thousandths in the center, or the effective length part of the bar. When they went to a hollow bar, they just figured out what the diameter needed to be to match the rate as close as possible to a 1025. So nowhere on a 1025 hollow or tubular bar will it actually measure inch 25 thousandths. So with that being said, they do vary. If you run a quality brand of bar, they don't vary by much, okay? So typically, I'll show you this little sheet that we have. Let me flip the camera. So this is a sheet that I created, gosh, forever ago, kind of based on the diameter of the bar and the average range we were seeing from multiple manufacturers' bars, okay? So typically they're falling in that window, which is, you know, less than a 10% difference. And that's from different manufacturers. So they do vary, and that's why we offer a free bar dyno service. If you buy a new bar from us, we'll dyno it for free. You just got to tell us what corner you're putting in, so we twist it the right way from the get-go. But they do vary, just like coil springs, right? You can buy a 175-pound coil spring. Some of them are going to check 173. Some are going to check 177. They're getting them as close as they can. They're dealing with spring steel. And with bars, you know, the heat treatment is a big part of it. Brad Wyatt, if the bar gets harder, why would it measure higher as it gets older? So the bar tends to work harden, is the only explanation I would have. And they rate a little bit stiffer. So it's getting harder to twist that material. And so the rate is effectively a little bit stiffer. Brent, that's a $1 million question. How many races can you get out of a bar? It really depends on the surface you're running at, how rough the tracks are, etc. Typically, we would say 20 races or so, and they're going to need replaced. It's a disposable item, just like a tire. You just can't see it wear out like you can a tire. All right, so it's something that definitely needs replaced. Jay, okay, so Jay, this is a good question. So chalk, when they first made their bars, they were very hard to get on the arm. Okay, as you can see with our dyno, we're dealing with steel stops, all right? Hence the reason the mallet is. So we're dealing with steel stops, which are even harder to get on than aluminum. It was Chalk's opinion, and I'm not disagreeing with them, that some of the other manufacturers were actually making the bars undersized so the arms slid on nicer, and that's when we got into this epidemic of arms and stops falling off all of a sudden. Been racing these cars for 50 or 60 years, arms and stops never fell off before, now they're falling off all the time. So they were adamant that their bars were the correct diameter. They've backed up a little bit, and they've reduced the size a thou or so, and we've noticed it. The arms do slide on a lot easier. You can see, as I was flipping that bar around, that's a Chalk midget bar. I didn't use the mallet. It slid right on the steel arms. So they've reduced the size a little bit. They don't fall in like some of the other manufacturers, but they are much easier to get on than they used to be. They used to be a real pain in the neck. Any other questions? We certainly appreciate all you guys tuning in. Makes me feel worth it to be missing my Saints game right now because I'm answering your questions and hopefully helping one of you guys win a race here to close out the season. Jason Myers, a formula to figure out travel per second to bar rate. I don't exactly follow your question. When we're dynoing the bar, it's not like when we're dynoing a shock where we're checking it at a velocity. We're more so checking it at a displacement. And so what we did there was we wound that bar up to 4 inches of arm travel, which is about 2 inches of shock travel, depending on where your shock picks up on the arm. Eddie, that's not a total lie. checking your bars on V-blocks is a very good idea to make sure that nothing has gotten bent or tweaked or anything like that. However, I think you would find bars that are perfectly straight in V-blocks still can rebound slow and not work as well as you'd like. Saints are doing good. Appreciate the update. Martin, best way to choose which bar you should run in each corner? Gosh, that depends on what exactly you're doing. If you want to email me specific setup questions like that, I'd be more than happy to share what we've been doing and what seems to work for us. It really depends on exactly what you're doing, and there's probably a million answers to that question. But if you want to shoot me a private message or an email, I'd be more than happy to answer that for you. Josh, thoughts on a 31-inch bar? It seems to be kind of the hot thing at the moment for the wing guys. I think personally it'll go back to a 30-inch. I've seen 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, now 31. Everybody always seems to cycle back to 30-inch bars. Seems to work the best for what we're doing. I sometimes think we just start trying to get too creative and cute, and I think you'll end up going back to a 30-inch bar. But not to say a 31's bad, I just don't know that there's a real advantage there. Adrian, do we match bar rate or wheel rate to shock valving? Well, in our core markets, micros, midgets, sprint cars, quarter midgets, we don't do a lot of checking wheel rate. So I'm assuming you're like a modified late model stock car guy. Wheel rate is a big deal as you're changing upper and lower control arms and your motion ratios changing, your coil binding springs and sitting on bump stops, etc. Shock valving's become a big part of what you're doing there. Our core markets, we usually don't measure that way. And a torsion bar is essentially a spring, and it's doing a different job than a shock is doing. So they work in harmony, but we don't necessarily match one to the other. Randy Hannigan, how much windup does it take to go from a 1-inch to a 1025 on a 13.5-inch arm? Well, really all you're doing is preloading that 1,000 bar, and you can get it to look like a 1025 in the early moments because you have so much preload in it, but as it travels, it's not going to build rate like a 1025 would. So you're just getting some preload in it. Under initial movement, it'll have rate like a 1025, but as it travels, it won't build rate like a 1025 just because it's not as stiff of a bar. Any other questions? Anybody have an update on the game, a score? Has Drew broke the record yet? When I shut off for this, we just had stopped him. I was listening on my phone, and I believe it was 6-3. Somehow we missed an extra point. But anyhow. Cool. Well, we appreciate all you guys tuning in. We will be back again next week with another informative show. Thanks for the update, AJ. 19-6. All right. Thank you guys for the update. That's good news. We appreciate you guys for a great show. We look forward to seeing some of you at Sweet Springs this weekend. And as always, if you have any questions, shoot me a private message or an email, and I'd be more than happy to answer that for you guys. Good luck this week, and hope you guys have a great night. Take care.